Dear finance professionals and students, welcome to podcast of FCA Deepak Rao, a practicing chartered accountant. Weekly digest for week 2 of October 2024. The Adani Group, India's second biggest cement maker, had entered the sector by acquiring Holcim India's operations in 2022. As with Holcim, Adani intends to move fast to close the deal with Ambuja Cements. Ambuja Cements had cash and cash equivalents of Rs 18,299 crore on June 30, 2024. However, the Indian conglomerate may opt out of a deal if it becomes a full sale process involving other contenders. Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel are delaying further expansion of their 5G networks due to low capacity utilization and pending monetization. Both companies are focusing on upgrading their 4G users to 5G, with Jio already covering over 90% of India's population and leading in 5G user base. The Reserve Bank of India is expected to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5% due to concerns over sustained inflation and geopolitical tensions in West Asia. The central bank may also shift its monetary policy stance to neutral, reflecting tolerance for surplus liquidity in the banking system. Secondary investors who snap up stakes in assets held by private equity funds are ramping up in India to grab a piece of a deal pipeline worth as much as $20 billion. Demand for these types of transactions has risen in the last few months. This comes as managers look to sell down nearly $92 billion of unrealized deal value in companies they backed more than 6 years ago. In a secondary deal, investors buy an existing asset or commitment from primary investors or from the private equity fund itself. A growing segment of the market involves continuation funds in which assets are shifted to a separate vehicle to allow the fund or general partner to hang on to the asset longer. Bharti Airtel is in advanced talks to acquire Tata Play, India's largest DTH business. This move aims to bolster Airtel's position in the digital TV segment. If successful, it will be the second major deal between Airtel and Tata Group. This acquisition would help Airtel compete with Jio's aggressive market strategies. The Income Tax Department is investigating over a dozen event management companies suspected of evasion through underreporting and incorrect declaration of income from overseas performances, as well as cash payments to vendors and contractors beyond the prescribed limit to escape the tax net. Celebrities who have worked with these companies are also under scrutiny, as the tax department has detected discrepancies in fees and payment. Nearly 50 companies including TCS, Tech Mahindra and Apollo Tyres have offered 13,000 internships via the PM Internship Scheme. The initiative aims to tackle youth skill gaps, with 200 companies targeting 1.2 lakh internships this financial year. Roles span across sales, marketing and manufacturing. Interns will earn Rs 5,000 monthly, with the first batch starting in December. Recently, the Indian government has requested private equity and venture capital industry to explain how other countries tax fund managers, particularly in relation to the application of GST to carry earnings that are part of the share of profits of fund managers and key employees. This subject, which has been topical in the recent period, can potentially affect the development and functioning of AIFs in India. Currently, none of the developed markets such as UK, US and Singapore taxes carried interest in the form of indirect taxes such as the GST. In these countries, such income is captured under capital gains, which is worse than business income as far as tax rates are concerned. This is viewed as profit on investment rather than management fees, which set it outside the remit of VAT or GST in most countries. The Indian fund managers who have actively participated in funding startups and other unlisted businesses have appreciated the government's attitude towards considering comparability of tax regimes internationally as a positive move. This could pave the way for clearer tax policies that treat carried interest similar to capital gains, potentially providing much needed certainty for the AIF industry. Tata Power is pursuing bids for wind turbines to equip its wind-solar hybrid renewable energy projects, expecting to install over 3 gigawatts with a potential expansion to 5 gigawatts over 5 years. Major manufacturers like Siemens Gamesa and Suzlon are involved, with investments estimated at $9 billion. Electric car sales in India fell nearly 8% in September, with Tata Motors seeing a notable 16% drop, hitting all-time low sales. Range anxiety and inadequate charging infrastructure are key deterrents. Conversely, electric two-wheelers surged by 40%, driven by Bajaj Auto and TVS Motor, indicating a growing market for e-two-wheelers despite reduced subsidies. India Inc. is expected to post a 10% rise year-on-year in aggregate net profits during the September quarter, according to analysts' estimate. The headline numbers might appear muted due to the steep decline in profits expected for the oil marketing companies in Q2. Relatively improved performance is expected from automobile manufacturers, IT service players, drug majors, and retailers. On the other hand, makers of consumer staples, capital goods, and banks will probably report muted numbers. The environment for discretionary spends has remained weak, as reflected in the lackluster sales at the start of the festive season. Premium products, however, continue to see fairly good demand across sectors such as real estate and cars. Delivering instant gratification seems to be the need of the hour, as beauty retailer Nykaa, direct-to-consumer player Licious, and Myntra try out 10 to 15 minute delivery pilots in select cities. The companies are responding to the growing demand for rapid deliveries across multiple product categories. RBI is expected to decide on potential 25 basis point cut in its policy rate as inflation remains below the target level. With a slowing growth momentum and a cooling down of food inflation, it's crucial for supporting economic growth. Global central banks are also reducing rates, adding pressure on RBI's decision. Three Mile Island Nuclear Power Station in Pennsylvania is reopening to supply electricity to Microsoft's data centers. Tech giants like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google are increasingly turning to nuclear power to meet the rising energy demands of artificial intelligence. Small modular reactors are being explored as a future energy solution globally, including India. In a significant relief for taxpayers facing tax demands from prior financial years, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs has issued notification number 21/2024 dated October 8, 2024, outlining the procedure and conditions for the waiver of interest, penalty, or both in respect of tax demands under Section 73 of the Central Goods and Services Tax Act. This waiver applies to registered taxpayers for the financial year 2017-18, 2018-19, and 2019-20. Earlier, SEBI-wide circular dated May 27, 2024 had prescribed the timeline for submission of annual disclosures and annual impact reports by social enterprises on the Social Stock Exchange for the financial year 23-24. Social enterprises that have registered or raised funds via Social Stock Exchange were required to submit a report by October 31st, 2024 in accordance with the regulations. SEBI has now extended this timeline to January 31st, 2025. The Central Consumer Protection Authority has tightened scrutiny on quick commerce and e-commerce players on issues of flouting the rules of selling products close to the expiry date. Several prominent quick commerce and e-commerce players will be issued notices soon. The Reserve Bank of India has proposed to provide a facility to the remitter to verify the name of the receiver or the beneficiary before initiating a payment transaction in real-time gross settlement or RTGS and National Electronic Funds Transfer or NEFT. Payment systems like UPI and IMPS provide a facility to the remitter to verify the name of the receiver before initiating a payment transaction. The RBI move comes after several requests to introduce a similar facility for RTGS and NEFT systems too. E-commerce companies in India could soon be in for a government crackdown over using dark patterns, deceptive techniques that manipulate consumers during festive season sales. These unfair trade practices have prompted consumer complaints, leading the Central Consumer Protection Authority to take action against offended companies, especially as online retail is rapidly growing in India. Adani Enterprises has raised $500 million through its qualified institutional placement. The Adani Group flagship, however, decided against exercising a green shoe option of an equivalent amount despite robust investor interest. The QIP saw an order book of more than $1.5 billion. It was launched with a base size of $500 million and a green shoe option of another $500 million. 8 companies such as Jindal Power, Vedanta and CESE are vying to acquire Hiranmaye Energy in auction. The Kolkata-based thermal power producer has a reserve price of Rs 1,300 crore. The company owns 3 units with 2 operational. It has a 25-year agreement with the West Bengal government for power purchase and coal supply from Coal India. The CBDT has received various representations from taxpayers that they could not file the audit report in the prescribed Form 10B or 10BB for assessment year 2023-24. In order to provide relaxation to the taxpayers, the CBDT has further extended the due date for furnishing the audit reports in Form 10B or 10BB from 31st March 2024 to 10th November 2024. India may end its ambivalence on the minimum 15% corporate tax rule for multinational corporations and include an enabling provision to comply with the relevant multilateral mechanism in the Income Tax Act. The provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961 are currently under a comprehensive review with a view to making it simpler and more lucid by removing redundant sections. The proposed Pillar 2 under the OECD or G20 inclusive framework, which aims to prevent profit sharing among tax jurisdictions by MNCs to minimize their tax outgo, would be ushered in by India as part of the Income Tax Act review, which is underway. The private equity firms are up against Dr. Reddy's, which has an alliance with Novartis for marketing some of its off-patent products and is also expected to bid. Alchem Labs is also in the fray. Novartis India has a market capitalization of around Rs 2,500 crore, though bids are likely to value it lower as per those in the know. Non-binding bids are due later this month. Housing finance companies betting big on the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and affordable housing refinance scheme to prop up their mortgage books may not see a boom in demand this festive season as the schemes are yet to be rolled out. These specialized mortgage lenders are still awaiting implementation guidelines from the government to roll out the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana subsidy scheme. India's life insurance sector experienced a 14% year-on-year growth in new premium collections last month. Private insurers saw a 16% increase, outpacing LIC's 12% rise. Among private players, ICICI Prudential Life and Max Life recorded notable growth. This comes amid regulatory changes in surrender charges and increased interest in unit-linked insurance plans. Boeing will cut 17,000 jobs, delay 777X jet deliveries by a year, and record $5 billion losses due to ongoing strike by West Coast workers. The CEO of Boeing stated that the downsizing aligns with financial reality. Boeing also faces cash flow issues, end of 767 freighter production, and potential penalties from safety and fraud concerns. The National Financial Reporting Authority or NFRA has imposed a penalty of Rs 2 crore on the statutory auditor and Rs 15 lakhs on two chartered accountants for professional misconduct during the audit of Coffee Day Enterprises Limited or CDEL for the financial year 2019-20. NFRA has also debarred the two CAs involved from undertaking any audit work for a period of 10 years and 5 years respectively. NFRA's order underscores the critical importance of auditors adhering to statutory obligations to protect the public interest. This follows a similar penalty levied in August on BSR and Associates LLP for lapses in their audit of CDEL. This podcast is sponsored by Sound of CA. We share because we care. Vande Mataram, Jai Hind.